I'm so glad everyone is logging in. I'm going to pause the elevator music. Although we could just sort of keep moseying like a jazz channel. Hello, welcome to your wine tasting. Oh my goodness. Welcome, welcome everybody. I'm just arranging things here. We're going to get going with the official program. Everyone's coming in fast and strong now, which is awesome. So good to see so many of you here. I am so impressed. Now we are going to not use slides tonight because I want it to feel a little less corporate, a little bit more informal, like we're having a chat with friends over the kitchen table. But you can jump into the chat. If you have specific questions, you can try posting them in the chat, but if the chat gets going really quickly, we may miss them. So if you have specific questions, put them in the Q&A. There's a little, Q&A. If you just move your mouse along the bottom, you'll see different icons. There's a Q&A icon. Click that for your questions. Click the chat for just commenting, saying hello, where are you logging in from, all that good stuff. So what we're going to do tonight, rough agenda, is we're going to start off. I'm going to introduce my lovely co-host, Menna Riley, who is there. Yes, isn't she lovely? Smart as a whip too. And so I'm going to introduce her, and then she is going to introduce me, I guess. Yes. And then throw it back to me for the wine tasting. I've got all 6 wines tonight. It's okay if you don't have the same wines or only a few wines. You can always watch the replay. You could order the wines later. The email that went out to you today with your Zoom link has links to the wines. They'll be posted for maybe another week, but no longer after that. So if you were feeling like, geez, these sound good, you can still order them. Neither Menna or I are on commission. We just ask these wineries to provide wines that we could all taste. But so we have no skin in the game here in terms of whether you buy them or not. But, we hope you'll enjoy them. And we do recommend them. So I'll do the tasting and then I'll come back. Menna's going to be on with me the whole time, but then we'll chat about the book. And then we will open it up to Q&A. Now, when we do that Q&A, Menna and I are going to get into the tools here and promote everyone to panelists. What that means is that everyone has the choice of whether they want to come on screen or not. So you'll probably see a little pop-up that says, do you want to be a panelist? If you just say yes, you can still do that and keep your video off if you want, and your audio. You could have your audio on, but not your video, or you could have both on, because I think it'll be fun at the end, Brady Bunch style, if we can have a chat. We'll see how it goes. It might get rowdy, but then again, I can mute you all, so I'm not worried. Anyway, control freak here from the beginning. But anyway, thank you all for coming. So let me introduce my guest. Now, I first met Menna. We did an event together in Halifax, where she's from. And I was so impressed with her. She is a consummate professional when it comes to organizing and delivering events. She was the host for the evening. She interviewed me there. And just from start to finish, from our communications to the event itself, to the afterward and the follow-up, I mean, just top notch. But I'm going to also share with you her bio, which will give you some details as to maybe why you want to connect with her, and I suggest you do. So Menna Riley is a strategic networking community builder. Inspired by her vision to elevate the business networking landscape for professional women, Menna has built some of Nova Scotia's premier event series and communities called Leading Ladies Networking. Her events, workshops, and courses have helped women to build their careers, connections, and community since its inception, since 2012. So Menna does a lot of events. They all sell out. They're fabulous. They get great reviews. Menna, welcome. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much, Natalie. As you know, I had a blast doing your book launch in Halifax. That was an incredible event, and we had so much fun, especially with the number of people that showed up live for your book launch. That was really incredible. I know we actually had to change the format of the event a little bit. As you recall, everyone was trying to get their book signed, and they were so excited. We had to stop the book signing to start the book launch, and then we got back to the book signing after, but it was really fun. The enthusiasm was really awesome.
Yeah, that was fun.
Um, so I'm going to just read your bio because I don't want to miss a very juicy detail. So Natalie MacLean was named the world's best drinks writer at the World Food Media Awards, and she's also won 4 James Beard Foundation Journalism Awards. She hosts the New York Times recommended podcast, Unreserved Wine Talk, and offers popular online wine and food pairing classes on her website, nataliemaclean.com. Natalie is the author of 2 bestsellers already, Red, White, and Drunk All Over, and Unquenchable. And her new memoir, Wine Witch on Fire, Rising from the Ashes of Divorce, Defamation, and Drinking Too Much, has also become a national bestseller. That's 3 bestsellers. All 3 books are available to purchase after our session for yourself or as a gift, and Natalie will be signing them. So if you order a book, you will get it signed.
Yes, I'll send signed book plates, by the way. Haven't figured out how to put the pen through the internet yet, but I have beautiful book plates if you want to get them as a gift for yourself or others for the holidays.
Well, I think it's nicer to get that actual human touch anyways. So that's even better. So Wine Witch on Fire, Rising from the Ashes of Divorce, Defamation, and Drinking Too Much is the story about how one woman resurrects her life and career in the glamorous but sexist wine industry. Shock. Starts with her shock when her husband of 20 years, a high-powered CEO, demands a divorce. Her year gets even worse when an online mob of rivals comes for her job. Wavering between despair and determination, she must fight for her son, rebuild her reputation, and salvage her self-worth using her superpowers, heart, humor, and an uncanny ability to pair wine with food. Along the way, she questions her inside role and the slick marketing that encourages women to drink too much, while she battles the wine world's veiled misogyny. In the end, she must reconnect with the vineyards that once brought her joy, the friends who sustain her, and her own belief in second chances. This true coming of middle-aged story is about transforming your life and finding love along the way. Before we dive into that, though, Natalie is going to lead you through a tasting of our wines this evening. Natalie?
Thank you so much, Menna. I appreciate that. So Menna and I have the 6 wines that have been on offer. I'd love to hear from you in the chat if you have these wines. I'm also interested if you have other wines that you're tasting tonight. I want to hear from you. What are your impressions? This is not going to be a technical tasting, but what I'm going to do with our first wine, we're going to start with the Benjamin Bridge, not the Nova 7, but the bubbly. So we have this one, and we're very fortunate to have Ryan from Benjamin Bridge in the chat with us. So if you have any questions, Ryan is here to answer them. And again, you can still get these after the fact. So we're going to start. What I always do with tastings is try to drink from dry to sweet, from light to full body. You always want to drink up sensorially. So we're going to start with this bubbly. And as I do, for this first wine, I'm going to kind of give you the 5 steps to tasting wine. I'm not going to do that with each wine because it would be repetitive, but I'm going to kind of do it with this first one. But you can be tasting whatever wine you have with you tonight as an example to learn the 5 steps to tasting wine. All right, here we go. So 5 easy steps. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the color, right? And you see a lot of people sort of swirling their wine in restaurants, holding it up to the light. It looks very sophisticated, right? Don't do that. Yeah, we're not going to do that because all that's going to tell you is how many colors the wine can reflect from the restaurant's wallpaper, right? So not very educational. What you want to do is tip the wine on a white tablecloth or napkin, maybe the back of a white, oh, there you go, Menna's on it. That's right. So that's how you can tell the color of the wine more truly. Maybe even the background of a white white book. Because if you get my book dampened or ruined, you can always order another one. Anyway, Kevin, thank you very much. Very kind. In the chat, if you haven't found the chat, please join us there as well. We're having comments going on. And one last, for those who joined us just now, in the chat, please choose everyone, not hosts and panelists. Susie, for example, you want to turn it to everyone. So that everyone can see your comments. Okay, so that's the visual. Generally, I'm going to stay high level here because we have a mix of expertise on the call tonight. So for those of you who want to learn a bit more about the tasting, generally, the deeper the color on a white wine, it means one of two things. It's either aged or it has a bit of oak on it. Now, with this bubbly, it's got a lovely, I mean, my colors are all askew because I'm here in front of my computer in the dark and whatever, but you know, it's got a lovely pale straw. We don't have to get very technical about it. Has anyone else got the Benjamin Bridge bubbly? I'd like to hear from you in the chat, or have you ever tried it, one of their bubblies or one of their wines? All right. Yes, says Susie.
Oh, Susan, when you're typing, make sure where it just says to, yours still says hosts and panelists and nobody else can see you. So
yeah, exactly.
That's everyone when you...
So,
oh, you've got it. Yay. Okay,
yay,
good.
she did it. And same with Shannon Peckett says, so good. We love the non-vintage, says Roger. Now it's going quick. Ian says, what a delight, this sparkling wine. Good afternoon from Blind Channel, BC. Oh, I don't have my glasses on. So here we go. Love it, says Kathy. Peter Simpson to everyone. I love the Benjamin Bridge you're drinking now, a go-to when we're at our cottage in PEI. Yeah. Excellent. And so the step one was the visual. Step two is smell. You know, we can detect, now it's estimated trillions of aromas. It used to be thousands and then they thought millions, but the way aroma molecules can combine and the way they can fit into our olfactory receptors, they're saying the number of combinations is huge. It could be in the trillions. So really the beauty of wine, like a big part of it is in the smell, right? Whereas we have 5 tastes, right? The 5 tastes, can anybody remember what the 5 tastes are? Anybody in the chat there? Sweet. There we go. Sweet, sour, salty, says Kevin. 2 more. Bitter and umami. There we go. We got all 5. A+ students. So you can imagine 5 tastes, trillions of aromas. So what you want to do is give your glass a really good swirl. And if you're nervous about doing that, do the training wheels version on a table or then graduate to the air. But you really want to, what we say, volatilize the esters. I always thought that should be a bumper sticker. I want to volatilize the esters.
I love that. You should definitely make that bumper sticker.
Such a geek, yeah. Or a crocheted pillow or something, maybe. I don't know. But basically, we want to get the wine molecules airborne. We're agitating it to get it up and out of the glass and into our nose. So you want to really stick your beak in there, get it in. And again, you see experts kind of sometimes doing this, and then they might do this. And that is a good thing to do because our sense of smell is more acute on one side or the other, and it switches about every 3 to 4 hours throughout the day. So you might get more from one side or the other. Sometimes that's hard to pick up at the beginning, so don't worry about it. But for those of you who have had this bubbly, have it now, or had a bubbly in the past, does anyone want to give me any sort of descriptors of what type of fruit or anything at all that you smell? Most of my students in my online courses, by the way, usually say, well, it smells like wine to me, you know, and it's really hard at the beginning to pick out all those specific aromas. But does anyone pick up anything? And it's all based on your own memory. There's no right or wrong answers, by the way, here. Just such a beautiful bubbly. Does anybody get any sort of like apple notes? Green apple? Say it with conviction and people go, yes, I get the green apple, or the baked bread, anything like that. Now, I was teaching an online class once, and one student said, we were tasting a Chardonnay, and she said, "This smells like my son's gerbil cage." And everyone's kind of going, eh? Any guesses as to why she thought that Chardonnay tasted like her son or smelled like her son's gerbil cage? We got some emojis going on here. Yeah. Oak shavings. Good one, Kevin. All right. And Guianne is saying in the wine, she's getting nice balance of acidity and Granny Smith apple. Susie was saying, you have a wine glass. I have champagne. Does it champagne glass? Great question. I tend to put my bubblies more in a white wine glass these days. The flute, the champagne glass that's traditional, will preserve the bubbles, but I find I can't swirl enough to get the smell out of it. That's subjective.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Gus may have an opinion. He's a wine writer here on the chat. I'd love to hear from him. Ryan is here from Benjamin Bridge. Ryan, do you have a particular glass that you recommend for your bubbly? Yes. Okay. So now I'll give you one more. Another online class. We were smelling Riesling, and someone said it smelled like the Dallas airport.
Well, okay.
Any guesses as to why? Anybody in the chat? Or Menna, you're always welcome to.
Oh, I see there's some guesses in the chat and they're the same answer. So I bet you that's Ish.
Exactly. Bingo. Petrol, jet fuel. And mature Rieslings will sometimes have this smell, and it's considered a good thing. I personally like it. Not everyone does, but I really like it. Yeah, I agree. It tastes like, smells like gasoline. It says, is it Sean? All right. So now the fun part, we get to taste. Not that you've been holding back, but you're going to taste the wine, and I'm not going to try to do this at the same time, talk and taste. But you really want to gargle the wine. You have taste buds everywhere in your mouth, not just your tongue. All of your soft palate on your cheeks, on your gums. So you really want to gargle it and get a full sense. And what we're doing is we're heating up the wine. We're getting a better sense of its aromas. But we're also, at the same time, so the taste is step 3. Step 4, the weight is happening at the same time. So the way I go with light-bodied, medium, and full-bodied is, does it feel like, not taste like, but feel like skim milk? 3% homogenized milk? Does it have that kind of weight? Or cream? So go ahead and taste this bubbly or the wine that you have, and let me know in the chat, have you got the a light, medium, or full-bodied wine?
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, I find it helps. It's more concrete. Gus, you're right. If I keep swirling, I'm going to lose all the the aromas, especially with the bubbly. Karen, I'm so glad you made it from Fort Francis. No worries. Ryan here for us at Benjamin Bridge. We love a universal white wine glass for the bubbly. Okay, cool. Kathy, I thought it was you didn't swirl a sparkling. I do. I like to get it airborne, but as I've been talking way too much and swirling way too long, I would never do that while I'm actually drinking a bubbly. I would just swirl it, smell, and taste, and so I wouldn't be dissipating all of the aromas and bubbles. But Gus, I'm curious if you mean that just for bubbly that will lose the aromas, or for any wine if you keep swirling it. Okay. You can decant sparkling and not lose the bubbles. Okay, cool. Kevin's a sommelier.
It's going to be like the hands up in the classroom. And there's nothing wrong with that. I encourage that fully. So we have a question in the Q&A, actually, if you wanted to look at that quickly.
Sure. Thanks for staying on it there, Menna. Wayne, my son, who now lives in San Luis Obispo, California, within that wine region, has recently told me that the red wine should be chilled. Is that correct advice? It depends, first of all, how you like your wine. Like, do you like it with a bit of a refreshment? And so a lot of people will chill their reds just a little bit, not as much as a white. But what happens often in restaurants or in the summertime is that we drink our reds too hot, too warm, and then they just taste of alcohol. They taste heavy. They're not refreshing. So it's always nice, I find, to have them just a little under room temperature, like 18 degrees-ish. You don't have to be precise, but I find then you get the aromas and everything else. Yeah, red's too hot, white's too cold. You're right, Gus. And whites are often numbed out of existence. the only whites you want to numb to fridge cold are really cheap ones served at low budget weddings. numb them completely so that you can't taste those things and just wish the happy couple well that they eventually have a budget. Okay, so the next step, we've done the weight. That was step 4. The finish is the last step, number 5. So the finish is basically how long does the impression of the wine last after you swallow it? So how long are those aromas still coming back to you? And as I say, like most sensual pleasures in life, I think longer is better, but that's subjective too. Anyway, so what we're doing when we have the wine in our mouth, we're heating it up. And when we swallow it, we're further heating it up. And you know that anything that's hot, like food-wise, smells more pungent. Think about a loaf of bread at room temperature versus a loaf of bread that's warm and just coming out of the oven. So we're trying to get those molecules heated up so that we get a far better sense of them. So what you can do, and again, I'm going to say this before I do it because I tried at the same time, didn't work. But after you swallow, just breathe out through your nose, not your mouth. It's called the retronasal. And there's different olfactory bulbs up there, or sensors, and you will get an even stronger sense than you did of the wine when you were sniffing it this way. So give that a shot, but just breathe out. Do not send the wine back that way, because that's very embarrassing as well. So, and painful. So here we go. And maybe, it might not come right away, but if you do it and you compare it to doing it this way, you'll start to feel, what am I smelling as it warms up? So that was just a quick overview on tasting wine. Oh my goodness, says Betsy. I think she had a revelation. Either that or her glass tipped over. I'm not sure which. I hope you're getting more of the aromas there, Betsy. Yes, good. Thanks. Revelation, good. Okay, so those are the 5 steps. Now I'm going to motor because that took longer than I thought, but I want to go through each of the wines that are here tonight. You'll all get the replay so you can watch it again. You can all email me if you have questions about the wines, but I'm going to go through them now. Again, not as a technical tasting, but as an overview. So the next one we're going to do, if you have it, let me know in the chat, the Quail's Gate Pinot Gris, 3 Wolves, which is just a gorgeous wine from BC. The winery itself is beautiful, as is Benjamin Bridge. All 3 wineries we're tasting tonight, visit them if you're in the region. Benjamin Bridge, of course, being in Wolfville, Nova Scotia, Quail's Gate being in the Okanagan Valley, and Westcott in the Niagara region. There you go. Thanks for the product shot there, Menna. Thank you.
In reverse, I can't tell.
Yeah, no, you got it.
Oh, yeah. Mostly.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, good. All right, so a number of people have this one. Let me know in the chat what you think. This is just a beautiful nose to me of sort of like white apricot. And, don't be intimidated by the fruit salad descriptors. I'm just going on things I've tasted in the past. And of course, I've been doing this for more than 20 years. So, oh, Karen loved your nails, Menna.
Aren't they great?
Yes. God, they're
kind of like fall chic.
Sorry?
I said fall chic.
Oh, fall chic, yes. And they're coordinated with your outfit. My goodness, you're rocking it.
Thank you. Oh, that's very different.
That's beautiful. And I think it's the next right wine to drink as we kind of try to ramp up here. So it's got a lovely acidity, but it's not like really bracing. Yes, Stephanie out in BC, apricot, peach, honey. Yes. And even when we say honey, it doesn't mean it's sweet wine, but we get aromas of honey. It's what creamy and good acid. Yum, yum. What will we pair this with? Anyone? Has anyone tried any of Quail's Gate's wines? Oh, okay. Some others have some of their other wines or have tried in the past. Well balanced, says Lisa. I agree, Nadine. Crisp acidity. Beautiful. I love that. To me, acidity in wine is to salt in food. It brings forward and highlights the flavor. Acidity is our friend. It makes our mouth water, and it's saliva that actually makes your food taste better. It combines with all the food, and you get a better experience when you're eating. Yeah, the rosé from there is really great too.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, Karen was just at Quails Gate on Thanksgiving. Lovely winery. They have a restaurant there. It's beautiful. Ripe fruit. Yeah, illusion of sweetness. You're right, Gus. Yeah, I love Menna's backdrop too. Winter scene.
It's actually a painting by a local painter, and I'm going to drop the website for her work at the end of this chat.
Absolutely. Anytime. Drop the link in.
I'll get it right now.
Yeah. Cool. I love supporting local artists. Everyone's got to make a living. So Ryan from Benjamin Bridge, please drop a link to the winery, and maybe actually even to the tasting pack that we're tasting tonight. Yeah, it is a poppy, Wayne. Thank you for remembering. Yeah. Well, thank you. Your son has been with the Canadian military since 2007. Excellent. Well, I thought that it would kind of blend in here, but anyway, as Quailsgate, Michael says, is our neighbor. Kathy and I love this wine, juicy and yummy. You're in a very privileged position to live right beside the winery. Michael went out and got the wines tonight. Nothing like being to have that convenience. Okay. Oh, Kevin's got pairings. Professional Kevin's got pairings. Fish, chicken, light cream dishes. If there's a bit of residual sugar, you can always pair with some spicy Asian dishes. Nice. Menna's posted the artist site. Okay. Oh, you did too, Stephanie. Bought yours today. They had a real rush on. All right. So to keep things moving, I'm going to go on now to the Westcott Chardonnay. This one is a lovely one from Niagara, full-bodied. In my follow-up email, what I'm going to do is send you all the details on these wines and the links to where you can see like when they picked and alcohol level and price and all that sort of stuff, so that, we just don't have time to dive into that right now. Nice. All right.
Because we are having fun.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is nice. It's not heavy, like it's not a fruit bomb.
Ooh.
It's got some good acidity again. It's mouth filling. Okay, Ryan's posted the Benjamin Bridge link. Yeah.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
These are all beloved wineries. I chose them for a reason. They're just got such super. Yeah, tell me about it. Why is it so difficult to get wines in BC and vice versa? So, Ryan, do you ship to every province? I was just curious. Deb's enjoying the queue. She's jumping ahead. You're not staying with the class. We're gonna catch up with you, Deb. That's gonna be one of our last wines. So anyway, this Chardonnay, full-bodied, round, luscious, good acidity. I would say golden apple, little bit baked bread from your oak aging. But again, it's so, the pairings would just be like a lot, from roast chicken to veal to all kinds of delicious things. All right, we're going to motor on to West.
It's like speed tasting now.
It is. Now you can be sipping on your wines, of course, when Menna and I are chatting. So there's plenty of time, but we don't want to keep everybody up past their bedtime, because we do want to have a significant chat about the book and then open it up to Q&A as well. So Pinot Noir, of course, is a lovely wine. We'll talk more about it in our conversation, you and I, Menna. But
and more question from Daryl Hickey. He's asking if we're scoring these.
Everything tonight that I have tasted these either tonight or in the past would definitely be 90 points and above. I don't know if I can do on the fly specific scores, but I'll post all of the wines and review tasting notes and scores and send that to you as well, so that you have that. Perfect. I know, fabulous glass, eh? I call it my big ass glass. And so what you need.
I just have a boring teeny.
That's okay. We're not going to do glass shaming. Yeah, it's
No
okay.
glass shaming. Okay, good.
But what we need, which one are we on, Chris? We're on the Pinot Noir from Westcott. We're motoring now, so try to keep up. But why we have a big glass for Pinot is it's so aromatic. So we want to give it lots of space to swirl and then still collect at the top. You notice the glass still gathers in at the top. That's why I've got this one. Ooh. He said something funny here. It just went by. Does this glass look make my
Oh my God.
big?
That's another bumper sticker for you.
Yes, exactly. So, Kevin's right on it with the Chardonnay pairings in the chat. Please do find the chat if you haven't found it yet, because we've got that. Yeah, lots of action in the chat. All right, I'm going to keep going. Now, what I get from the Pinot, just so you know, light to medium bodied. It was a warm vintage 2020, so it's bigger than Westcott usually produces in style, but I love it. It's still balanced. You get your tart cherry, your lots of mouthy, juicy, mouth-watering acidity. This would be so good, again, with roast chicken or veal. I'm stuck on those two dishes. But Kevin will save me and come up with, I don't know, planked salmon and all kinds of other things. So a little bit more, one more taste.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Isn't it? Oh my gosh. Okay. Now on to the final red. We'll still have Nova 7 after this, but the final red is Q from Quail's Gate. Would love to hear from anybody who has Q. There it is. All right. I know we're doing the fire hose approach to information here tonight, but you can always watch the replay. And I'll save the chat too, because there's lots of great suggestions in there. So now I'm back to this kind of glass. You know, you can experiment with different glasses to see if it changes your perception of anything. But this is more of a traditional sort of red blend. I'm smelling the oak, but nicely blended. I'm smelling juicy, ripe, delicious, dark fruit. You'll even notice my voice has come down an octave talking about this wine. It's very full-bodied. It's complex. It's certainly far more full-bodied than the Pinot. So not better, different. And therefore, you would match it with more hearty meat dishes. Kevin, anything to add here? Oh, my goodness. What do you think, Menna?
I haven't tried it yet, but it smells definitely more robust. And it reminds me, if I was going to pair it with something without even tasting it, it reminds me of this incredible elk dish I had one time. I would say something like that, maybe.
Oh, yes. Oh, that'd be a divine pairing. Oh my gosh. Kevin's back here at it. Grilled steak, veal, sausages, wild game. Yes. Lisa gets blackberries and licorice. And you know, I'm picking up like my mouth kind of puckered after I drank it. I went like, and that's the tannin. That's the sort of the mouth puckering, drying, but pleasantly drying feeling you would get if you were eating walnuts or drinking oversteeped tea. So this wine definitely can benefit from both decanting and aging, because it could come together a bit more with its tannin. Very drying tannin, says Stephanie. Yes. Yeah. So it really does make me pucker, whereas some of the whites made my mouth water, kind of the opposite reaction.
Really?
Yeah. I agree, Jeff. Needs to cellar for a few more years. I think it could easily go the distance of more than 5 years, and it would still be great. It's got so much into it. A fatty brisket could take care of those tannins. Oh my goodness. We need to.
I think Gus invited us all down to Texas, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Now let us go back to the Nova 7. We began with Benjamin Bridge. We're going to finish the tasting, but of course you all are going to keep enjoying your wines, whether you have these or others. And this is a wonderful wine. Is this, Ryan, just into the chat, what was the origin story of this wine? Is it a tidal bay, or it's different from tidal bay? It has this sort of to me the aromatics of Tidal Bay, and that it's floral and it's pretty and it's light, but it has some effervescence, and then it has, I think, 10 grams of residual sugar. We don't need to be afraid of that because it's going to go with anything spicy, all the cuisines we love that mostly kill off wines. This one is going to handle it. Get a slight fizz, you're serving it chilled. I mean, just Indian, all kinds of dishes that have any sort of spice or heat. Oh my goodness. Leanne let the Q breathe for a while and it softened it. Yeah, love the Q, says Deb. Oh my gosh, floral and fruity. Yeah, peaches, candy cane, love this. Great with dark chocolate. Oh, that would be the Q, I think, what you're talking about there. Different from Tidal Bay, initially released as an intro to Benjamin Bridge portfolio when the sparklings were aging. Okay. Sounds like your Beaujolais, although it's much better in tasting. But yeah, oh my God.
We have some Nova 7 members in the chat, that's for sure.
Yeah. As Kevin says, works so well with spicy foods, can handle Madras or green Thai curry. Is Nova 7 available in BC? So I'll let you answer that, Ryan. I believe you have national distribution or you ship nationally, one of the two. All right, you folks, please keep enjoying your wines. We have to, Menna and I are going to get down to the interview. I hope you'll stick around because we're going to open it up to a Q&A. But let's see how it goes, Menna, time-wise, and because I really would love to get into some of these questions. And yeah, I'm going to fling it back to you.
You mean Highland Fling?
Yeah, exactly. No swords tonight, but yeah. And I'm going to focus mostly on your questions, and but keep going in the chat, keep posting in the Q&A, even if we don't get to it now. Yours will be the first questions we tackle when we open it up for Q&A. All right, Menna, take it away.
Okay, so I know some of you actually have read this book already, which is awesome, and some of you are ordering it. But can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with the title, Wine Witch on Fire, Rising from the Ashes of Divorce, Defamation, and Drinking Too Much?
Thanks, Menna. So, most people think, oh, wine witch on fire. Sounds like an angry woman who drinks a lot of wine and owns a lot of cats. But it's not. There's a lot of humor and a happy ending. Sorry, spoiler alert that there will be smiles. But witches for me have always fascinated me. And, from the time I was a child, my favorite bedtime stories that my mother read to me were all about witches. So, the Wizard of Oz, the good witch Glinda, and then the bad witch of the Wicked West or whatever. And, I even loved the White Witch in Narnia. She was such a badass, and so for someone who tried to be a little goody Miss Two Shoes, it was such a nice outlet. When she froze Narnia and canceled Christmas, I was kind of cackling along with her, thinking, I'd like to be that. But, and I think what appeals to me about witches is that they always got their power from within. They didn't seek external validation. And, for someone who has sought external validation all her life, that's a relief. As an adult, of course, I realized that some stereotypes of women can be damaging, including the way we used to think of witches. But I do think there is a way to take back the word witch and what it means. And for me, it is a wise woman who has been through the fires of life and emerged on the other side, stronger, wiser, fiercer.
Okay, well, interview over. No, I'm kidding. But that's incredible. Thank you. So I wanted to say, you started this book with your own custom wine label.
Yeah.
So if you could be any wine, which one would that be and why?
Thank you. the book starts with a wine label because the sort of the contents are what's in the bottle here of this book, Domaine MacLean, and then I have a QR code because you can get a free book club guide. But the wine or the grape I chose was Pinot Noir, the heartbreak grape, so named because it's so difficult to grow and make. The self-described pathological optimists, the winemakers who make it, consider it the holy grail because it's so susceptible to mildew and mold and rot and voices above a whisper in a vineyard. It's just really high maintenance and fussy. And it always reminds me of a grape that's on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And I really find that interesting in grapes and people. I find that interesting in a wine, nervy, edgy acidity, and in people. So if I were at a party, I would be going over to the corner where Pinot Noir is already starting to sniffle and talk to Pinot Noir. I would leave Cabernet by the steak station, stable, okay, a little boring. But yeah, so if I could be a wine, if I could talk to a wine, if I can drink a wine, it's Pinot Noir.
I love that. That's very inspirational. So obviously you have had a long history with wine. When exactly did you fall in love with wine?
Well, I didn't start drinking wine until I graduated or till after graduate school. So I did an MBA at Western, still trying to figure out how to make my way in life and have a job. As my single mother said, geez, make sure you get something that's going to give you a job. Anyway, so it wasn't until I had the funds to get fancy that I started experimenting with wine. So as I wrote in my first book, Red, White, and Drunk All Over, about the taste of my first great wine, I'll quote myself, which better get the copyright accurate here because that's the issue in the third book. So anyway, quote, as I raised the glass to my lips, I stopped. The aroma of the wine rushed out to meet me, and all the smells that I had ever known fell away. I didn't know how to describe it, but I knew how it made me feel. I moistened my lips with the wine and drank it slowly, letting it coat my tongue and slide from one side of my mouth to the other. The Brunello trickled down my throat and out along 1,000 fault lines through my body, dissolving them. My second glass tasted like a sigh at the end of a long day, a gathering in and a letting go. I felt the fingers of alcoholic warmth relax the muscles at the back of my jaw and curl under my ears. The wine flushed warmth up into my cheeks and down through my shoulders and across my thighs. My mind was as calm as a black ocean. The wine gently stirred the silt of memories on the bottom, helping me recall childhood moments of wordless abandon. So, Menna, I still recall that first taste, and I love wine because every bottle is different, every vintage is different. Unlike the packaged goods I used to market at Procter & Gamble, Crisco, Pringles, Duncan Hines, it's that unpredictability that I love with wine. It's like watching a live ballet versus an edited televised version where it's, everything's safe. The dancer could fall flat or soar. And to me, wine is more in that way, wine is more of an experience than a thing. And I love it so much for that.
Wow, thank you. Well, it's no wonder that you won the world's best wine writer award after that description. That was absolutely incredible. I was along on the journey with you. So tell us, after you've already written 2 best-selling books, what was the inspiration behind writing this memoir?
Yeah, well, Menna, at first I thought, just walk away from this dumpster fire of what happened in 2012. Like, it was too painful to even look at my notes. And, to write about it, I thought to write about this publicly would be vandalizing my own privacy. Like, why would I want to do that? And so that's what I did for 5 years. But the story just kept ricocheting around in my head and just bounced and bounced. And I thought, okay, I have to get this down on paper, at least as a private exercise for making sense of what happened to me, because as a writer, that's how I make sense. I don't process verbally, like I make sense of writing about my life or things or wine. That's how I learn. I write about it. So I had no intention of publishing it. But as the years went by, I was hearing more and more stories, not just from women in the wine industry, but from women friends in the military and tech and finance and sport who had similar stories. You know, of course, the specifics of their situation were different, but the feelings and the themes were the same. And so I thought, you know, maybe if I share my story, it will make someone feel less alone. And so, as I say, you know, not everyone, you know, the specifics of everybody's personal story are different. Not everyone's gone through a divorce or a bad breakup. Many of us have, but not everyone. But I'm almost certain that every one of us has felt the longing for love and loss and loneliness. You know, not everybody's been mobbed online, thank God. But I'm sure most of us have felt fear of the future or wondering what's going to happen to our career or doubts or whatever. And so I think a good memoir is when you can read about those feelings. Someone puts it into words for you, but through the safety of their story, not yours, and then shows how they came through it and what they did with their lives afterwards. That can be very healing. But I needed the distance of time to do this. Well, my final inspiration was, you know, memoirist Glennon Doyle said, write from a scar, not an open wound. In other words, get the healing done. And then you might say, well, okay, the healing's done. Why are you still going to go at this and pull off the scab or whatever? The healing's done. But for me, poet Sean Doherty had the answer. He said, why bother? Because there is someone somewhere right now that has a wound in the exact shape of your words.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, that says it all, really. It sounds like it was really difficult to write this book, was it?
Yeah, it was. And thank you for the comments. There's so many beautiful comments. I mean, I want to go there, and we're going to get to you all when we open this up for Q&A. But thank you. Keep the comments going. Also, feel free to chat among yourselves, but thank you all. I see them. I see you.
Yeah.
Was it difficult to write this book? Yes, it was. You know, MRI brain scans have shown that when someone survives a near fatal car accident, what they've done is then they put them into an MRI machine and then read the same script to them of the accident unfolding. And the same areas of the brain light up. So what's happening is they're not remembering it inside their mind and through their body. You know, the body keeps score. They're not remembering it, they're reliving it. And so, you know, for me, I had to get through all of that trauma, that with a lot of therapy that continues to this day. And the therapy is in the book. You can be a fly on the wall and look at how we processed it, just the best, juiciest sessions. But, you know, I think we have to remember that, you know, our mind creates a reality. And even sometimes, Menna, when I go back and look at my notes or the screenshots, I will slip into the present tense when talking about what happened as if it's still happening. So the therapy continues, probably will never end, but yes, there you go.
It's a journey, right?
It is a journey. We're never finished. Absolutely.
So you alluded a little bit to this earlier. I wanted to ask more about kind of your balance between drinking too much and being a professional wine writer. Do you feel more exposed for having written this memoir? And since you're a professional wine writer in the public eye, what does that have to do with drinking too much? And like, how did you score that balance?
Yeah, it's something to say, you know, I'm a writer and I'm drinking too much. I think, you know, in this memoir, I've written openly, not only about drinking too much and that it's my profession not to drink too much, but to actually taste wine. The difference, as I tell my online students, the difference between tasting and drinking is spitting and thinking. So just as a movie critic goes to the movies and is writing copious notes on character development and narrative arc and all the rest of it, wine critics go to a glass and are analyzing all the aspects that we did at a very high level at the beginning of this evening. It's not just about drinking wine till you're a blotto. So I wrote openly about drinking too much, using it as a crutch, but also about hyper competitiveness and perfectionism, issues with that. And a lot of people have identified with that, early readers. You know, like I lived in what an enophile would consider paradise. You know, bottles were always on my desk. They arrived daily from wine agencies and wineries, still do. I had hundreds of bottles in what I called Tasting Alley, and wine fridge, and then 3,000 under my feet in my own basement. And the challenge I found was made especially post-divorce. So I should say, you gave the description at the beginning, Menna, but this no good, terrible, very bad vintage started with my divorce, which I felt blindsided by, and ended with the mobbing. And in response to these two events, I started drinking too much as a crutch. I'd been writing about wine for almost 15 years before that, and had never had an issue with that. But now that I had the depression from the divorce, anxiety from the mobbing, what I was finding a struggle was to get through what I called, or has been called, the arsenic hour. And that's around 5 p.m. when there's a natural dip in our serotonin. We're just tired. And, we're trying to transition maybe from work to personal life. And they call it the arsenic hour because it's when you feel that you either want to take arsenic or administer it to those around you to get them to quiet down.
That's not a modern day saying. But...
So, drinking wine too much is something we don't talk about much in my industry, if at all. And yet industry statistics indicate that the hospitality industry, which includes wine, restaurants, wineries, has the highest rate of substance abuse of all professions. We have easy access. We have the cloak of professional respectability. If we've got a glass in hand, we don't have a problem. We're working. So, it was very exposing to put that out there because no one really talks about it in my industry that I've seen talks about it. Maybe no one else has a problem. Don't think so. But putting it out there publicly was not only a way of making sense of it, but holding myself to a higher standard of accountability. And you could say, well, now everybody knows, everything. And if you slip up, everybody thinks, did she learn nothing? But it's the opposite. Now that I've shared my story, now that I've been completely vulnerable, I feel more supported than ever, not just by my friends and family, but by people I don't even know who come out of the woodwork and tell me their stories. It's been amazing. And, there's something that happens when you let your guard down, and you will find that reciprocation comes flooding in and back to you.
Oh, I'm sure. Now, we do have a couple questions in the Q&A, but I'm just going to ask one of them right now.
Sure.
Kamal asks, can you quantify drinking too much?
Everybody wants to know. And so
that's a hard and easy answer, depending.
It is.
Yeah.
Everybody, okay, so the usual caveats. I'm not a medical professional. This isn't medical advice. Everybody's different. Everyone's subjective. Your body chemistry, whether you're a man or a woman, all kinds of things. Your percentage of body fat versus muscle, all affects your ability to metabolize alcohol. There have been some misleading guidelines lately coming out. People think Health Canada changed its guidelines. It did not. It was the Canadian Substance Abuse Centre, which has a mandate for zero alcohol. So don't get confused with that. They came out with 2 drinks a week. That's not Health Canada. Health Canada remains 1 to 2 drinks a week or a day for women, up to 7. I think it is max 7 to 14. I'm going to have to check this a week. And then for men, it's something like the 2 to 3 per day, 14 to 21. I think it's going down though. Here's the thing. You have to look at all the statistics. You have to make your own trade-offs, right? You think, okay, what's one of the number 1 killers? Stress. If we enjoy wine in community, as a, like with friends, with food, I think that can go a long way to mitigating some of the natural stressors. If we're not using it as a tool to cope with anxiety and depression and other things that we have to deal with. So I think wine can be an integrated part. It's why I didn't choose to go sober, even though I have alcoholics in my family. It can be an integrated part of a holistic, full, alive, sensorially rich life. You have to pick where you net out in terms of how much you drink. For me, I'll share this. It's not an official guideline, but I try to take 3, sometimes 4 nights off a week. And when I drink, I try to stay at 3 glasses. Sometimes I slip to 4. I know that's too much, but I try to keep it at 3. 3 nights a week or whatever that would be. That's where I am. And it's still a struggle, and I still think about it, and I still read every study that comes out. And it's different for everybody, but I hope that helps. I hope that gives you, because there just doesn't seem to be a consensus on the science yet, but it also comes down to being a personal decision.
Well, that's actually, you pre-answered my next question a bit, which was, I know this isn't a self-help book, but can you share a little bit of how you moderated your own drinking or alcohol consumption? So I know you shared that you cap the number of glasses of wine you're going to have and keep it to a certain number of days a week. Are there any other personal ways that you found helped you cap your alcohol consumption?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
At first, Menna, I asked my therapist, should I just quit, walk away? Got alcoholics in the family. And she said, that might be punitive. Let's try harm reduction first. Let's see if that works. And so I was intrigued, of course, because I'd like to keep my job. And so we came up with a variety of techniques, but first and foremost, you need to deal with any underlying issues. I'm a big proponent of therapy, still in it, still will be till the day I die. Once I dealt with the depression from the divorce and the anxiety from the online mobbing, plus all of that other childhood crap of competitiveness and perfectionism, I shouldn't say dealing with, but got a handle on these things, the automatic need for a drink to deal with frustration or despair diminished significantly. So deal with underlying issues first. The next technique was, what was the thought just before the thought that said, I need a drink? And was it about stress? If so, could I find another way? Could I do a 5-second circuit breaker of like taking a breath, putting my hand, getting back into my body, because all of that frustration is in your head, right? You're living up there. And could I go for a walk, change my energy, take a bath, watch a show, anything? Because I found if I could just, first the 5-second circuit breaker, and then the 5-minute circuit breaker of like getting out there, even for a short walk, really helped. Then there were all sorts of other things. If I open a full bottle, I'll pour half of it into a half empty bottle. So I'm more mindful of how much I'm drinking. I don't get into the mindset of, oh, this was a beautiful, expensive bottle or whatever. It didn't have to be expensive, but I better finish it. It's not going to be good tomorrow, because it's all about oxygen exposure, right? So if it's not exposed to oxygen, it'll stay fresh for another day, for another week or whatever. And someone's already talking about Coravan, Nadine, in the chat, that there's all kinds of tools, Coravan, repour corks, all kinds of tools, preserve spray. So that you don't get the mentality of like when we were children, clean all the peas off your plate, clear your plate or no dessert. Better finish the bottle, it's open anyway. Alternate glass of wine, glass of water, all those kinds of things. There's lots of tips in the book. People are drawing a lot from it in terms of moderating their own consumption. I never thought it would be used as a self-help book, but it is remarkably, and I'm glad.
So you've heard from a lot of your readers already about some of their stories that have moved you. Can you tell us a little bit about that, about those?
Yeah, I've received, I mean, it's it opened it broke me open in a good way. The number of emails and direct messages and even written letters that I've been getting since this book was published in May. In Canada, US was June. And it's just like, I never thought it would have that connection. I guess I didn't know how people would react, but it's, I'll just share some rather than blither on. So here, just a couple emails that I've received from readers, change their names, of course, identifying information to change their, or to protect their privacy. So here's one. Your book resonates with me very strongly. Notice my email address is momneedswine at blah, blah, blah. It was something my youngest daughter came up with in a darling art piece that she made for me many years ago. Endearing, adorable, and innocent, yet it's also something that haunts me. Wine has been a big part of my life. And through marriage struggles and an effort to walk an immense journey of betrayal and pain, it became too big a part of my life. I had no idea of your story and struggle. So proud of your courage and voice. Know that you already have and will continue to make an impact. One more. This is John's wife. I wanted to let you know that our son took his own life during COVID. John started hitting the bottle pretty hard. He's backed off since, and I firmly believe your book was a big part of that. So, I think those are my heaven points.
You really can't ask for anything more than that. Wow, that's incredible to know what an impact you've made. What would you say when you wrote this book, you were hoping people would get out of it? Now that you know what some readers have gotten out of it, what would you say that you hope they do?
Yeah, I think a piece of themselves better understood. In winemaking, we have a term called dry extract, and it's what's left of wine after all of the moisture has been evaporated out of it or boiled out of it. It's the essence of the wine. It's fundamental flavor components. And I think dry extract is in us too as people. I would never wish a terrible vintage on anyone, personally or professionally. But when you go through it, you really realize you have to dig down into that dry extract that's inside of yourself, and you will be surprised, maybe shocked, at how much strength and resilience you have, and that you can actually rise again from something that seems profoundly just like game over. It's in everybody.
At your essence, at your core.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
How has writing this memoir changed you personally?
Well, I thought strength and independence meant holding it all in and not needing anyone. Perfectionism, competitiveness, no problems, everything's fine here. But it was only when I opened up to friends and family and a few women in the industry that I really felt the restorative power of friendship. And I thirsted for it like a dehydrated plant that finally got the water she needed to perk back up and come back to life. And, now I realize that vulnerability, being open, is the only defense. During this whole fracas online, someone had started a Wikipedia page about me, and I felt like, oh my God, is that the last chapter? I'm a writer. They've written my story. But no, I've written the final chapter, I feel, about this part of my life, at least, with this book. But in doing so, the only way I could do it was to be completely open. Bless you. Because, you can't control what others think ever about you. And we all think about it to some degree. So why not tell them lots without editing out the nasty bits? And that is how I now connect to people, not through perfection, but through how absolutely flawed, flawsome I am. Because that's what people connect with. That's humanity. That's, everybody's struggling, right?
That's truth. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, just to wrap this up, extreme failure made me face something that I never want to return to, but it also gave me a taste of a full life that I never ever want to lose. Because, when the mob came at me and said, I had was spouting all kinds of things, I had to say, am I really this person? Am I who they say I am? And the answer is always yes, no, and something more. Because I think we change with every experience. Everything brings out something different in us. But these tough experiences can force your roots deeper down in those soils and make you fiercer, stronger, wiser.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. So I wanted to know that you were covering so many serious topics, but you did it with so much humor.
Yeah.
So how in the world did you take something that was so life-changing for you, so serious in every department of your life, and use humor to get through it? And how did you find that balance?
Yeah, well, humor's always been my way of coping with everything. It's always been a bit flip, but come from my Celtic roots, I don't know, we find levity even in dark moments. So there was a comment once at a funeral, I remember, with one family member saying of the other, the deceased, that he was still showing up late. It's a way of, I don't know if it was a Celtic way of blunting the feelings, but I don't want to trivialize serious subjects, but I believe that a book, a memoir, a movie, it cannot be one long bleak, bleak narrative. They call them misery memoirs. There's a whole genre if you just want to cry the whole time. I think we need comic relief, though, in life, in books, something to brighten up the narrative, especially when the subtitle of this book, Wine Witch on Fire, Rising from the Ashes of Divorce, Defamation, and Drinking Too Much, is brought to you by all the dismal Ds. The publisher said, if you add one more dismal D, we can't sell it. So they would not let me add destitution, delirium, or depression. But they say comedy is pain plus time. And I certainly could not have injected humor into this situation 10 years ago. You need that lens of time to pull back and realize that some of the things that happen to you they border on the absurd. They're so absurd, they're almost comical. And that's where you get the humor. But that said, I think my humor now is more of a welcoming in than just a flippancy. So I hope it's more a gathering in with the reader rather than ba-dum.
Oh, absolutely. More the former. It's very inviting, and it makes everyone feel like they can, okay, I can, again, watch this from the third party in a safe place, but also have a couple chuckles along the way. So we do have a really great question in the Q&A, but I still want to ask you this one first.
Okay.
Has anything really changed in the wine industry since the time that you refer to in the book?
Yes and no is always the answer. So the events in this book happened in 2012, which was before movie producer Harvey Weinstein and others were convicted of sexual assault, before the Me Too movement and all that sort of thing. Although I think that the issues and the story that's in this book is more relevant today than it was back then, for a variety of reasons. But so today there's far greater global awareness of the issues, and people are talking about them now and not shut down immediately for saying something. They're more believable. The restaurant industry, we've heard more stories from the restaurant industry in terms of celebrity chefs and restaurateurs getting charged or whatever for sexual harassment. There's been more story, you think Mario Batali and Ken Friedman and others. The wine industry, though, is so much smaller, less formal, and less organized in a way than the restaurant industry. Most 80% of wineries in Canada and the US, and I would say probably globally, perhaps, have fewer than 20 employees. So that means they probably don't have an HR department, let alone a harassment policy, let alone one that's enforced or communicated. That's changing too, but still. The other thing that happens in the wine industry that's different is that you learn your job in a one-on-one relationship generally. If you want to be a winemaker, a sommelier, or a lot of other things. Whereas in restaurants, you're part of a cooking brigade line. So there's more group training. It's one-on-one in the wine industry with a big power differential. And that person that you're training under is going to be responsible for your next job, your referral, if you get, your permanent job or the next training that you get. It lends itself to abuse. In 2020, there was a scathing expose in the New York Times by Julia Moskin on the Court of Master Sommeliers. 7 of them resigned due to sexual harassment allegations. 21 women came forward. The fallout was swift. Even in 2018, since this book was written, Norm Hardy in Prince Edward County admitted to many of the allegations made against him in terms of sexual harassment were true. Another 21 women just coincidentally happened to come forward. So the short answer is that a lot has changed, but a lot still needs to be done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna save the Q&As for when we're getting through just a couple more questions. Can you share an example of how sexism is embedded in wine tasting notes?
Sure. So, some wines are just, we're going to go into Q&A in about a few minutes, folks. So I'll just wrap up with this one, but thank you, Menna. Some wines are described as feminine, others as masculine. Feminine usually means light-bodied, smooth, supple, easy drinking. Masculine, full-bodied, muscular, complex. You even have to go down an octave again talking about masculine wines. But the assumption even that feminine wines means something lighter and less complex than masculine, I think we have to question that. I've heard of Chardonnay described as blousy or slutty. I've never seen those descriptors for a Cabernet or Shiraz. So I think we have to re-examine those narratives. I was a big part of it. I wasn't a bystander. I was team captain in terms of these descriptors and so on. Writing about women, how, oh, isn't it great how far we've come, baby? And yet fewer than 10% of women own wineries in North America. But it is really hard to read the message on the bottle from inside the bottle. And that's why, again, you need the lens of time to see what's really happening.
Right. Oh my goodness. So funny to kind of look at that through that lens. So especially with like marketing these days,
Yeah,
I would say not these days, especially over time, but marketing, targeting drinking to women.
mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the message on the bottle is that some labels, women are either babes or battle axes. So we're either, reaching for labels like little black dress or stiletto because it's girls' night out or a spa or whatever. Or we're going for, mommy, a mad housewife or whatever to obliviate another day of motherhood. And the message is that women need a reason to have a glass of wine. Whereas no one asks a man why he wants to have a drink. He has one because he wants one. If you step back and look at the marketing, the underlying message under that is that no one's thanking mom. So mom will thank herself to a drink and then another one. And I think labels and messages that profit from powerlessness, I think we don't need to support them. We vote with our dollars, and there's so many wines with authentic labels, authentic stories made by women, others, LGBTQ, people of color, and so on. We can, we vote with our dollars. That's why we buy fair trade and sustainable food and other things and all the rest. We don't buy blood diamonds, for a reason. So, it matters, and we have choice. There's tons of great wines with great stories and great workplaces to choose from.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're just getting close to the Q&A right now, but right before we do, I'd love it if you could read just a little bit from your book.
Yes, and where are my glasses? You know what, Menna? My glasses aren't handy, so I think because of the hour, I think we're going to jump right into the Q&A.
Okay, that's a great idea. Only because of the timing, not because we would love to hear you read from your book.
No worries.
I will ask our question from Samantha Osadu.
Sure.
You bring up and name some well-known sommeliers in your book that people actually recognize. Did you face any pushback in the industry from what you wrote, and how did you handle it?
I love this question. And as I'm going to answer it, Menna, maybe you can click through the attendees and start promoting them to panelists. What's going to happen, folks, by the way, on the technical side of things, is that you will be on screen, but you can turn off your camera and your microphone if you like. So we just want to get you into the Q&A. Here's the thing about naming names. So at first I changed all of the names in the book, my family names for privacy, and then what I considered trolls, because you don't feed the trolls, right? So they want attention. You don't give them that. And but then the lawyers read it and said, if you're going to quote these people and the egregious things they said, you're going to need to use their actual names. Otherwise, you're violating their copyright.
So wait a second, you were going to change their names to protect their identities, and your lawyers said because of everything they put you through, you actually had to use their actual names?
I had to use their actual names to quote them, not to violate their copyright. And this book revolves around the issue of copyright and a misunderstood version of it. So it was ironic in that I was not going to out them or name names. I didn't want to cast a light on trolls. But in the end, I had to, because I was quoting them. And so that's the irony, which people find amusing. And in the end, I came to peace with it, Menna, because I believe in the end, these men, they were all men. Lots of good men in my life, by the way, lots of great men in my life. But in the end, I believe they deserve full credit for what they did and said. So there's that. But to answer the question, in terms of, yeah, exactly, Gus, you must quote to have fair use. So was there any blowback? There has been zero blowback, which has surprised me. There was there was one comment on Instagram, and it was on somebody else's account. She took a screen capture of it. He deleted his comment. She reposted it, and then everybody jumped all over it.
Burn. I love it.
Yeah. So because anyway, it was almost too juvenile to go into, but anyway, I still, because of what I've been through, am waiting for the other shoe to drop. But since it's been out there since May, I'm feeling a lot more confident now. I mean, we really battened down the hatches with the lawyers in terms of reading this several times. And I've learned a lot. I was actually enrolled in law school, should have finished, but I've got my law degree now, I think, through life. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, great question, but
yeah. We had one other question. How has the wine writing community reacted as a whole to your honesty of what happened at the hands of the mob?
They've been incredibly supportive. I think a lot of people don't see, they see a situation and they don't see the totality of it, how things add up. Even if they're involved in the fracas, maybe they only see the stone they threw or whatever. But when you get the total picture, you get the behind the scenes, I think it's frightening for people, because they start to understand just how things can accumulate and get out of hand very quickly.
Stop watching the thing.
All right. Okay, now we're getting some people.
We're on.
Folks, even if you're shy, you can still come on to be a panelist with your video off.
Yeah.
Let me just...
No.
Okay. Another question is, we know your favorite is Pinot Noir. Is there a grape you are not fond of that you're comfortable speaking about?
Let's see. I love them all. I used to find Gewürztraminer very pungent, and I would write my wine reviews such that I would say, if you like Gewürztraminer, then you will like this one. And someone said, what do you mean, if you like Gewürztraminer? I like Gewürztraminer. So I realized my own bias there.
I love that.
There's probably some very tannic wines. Like I'm a super taster, so I have a very high sensitivity to bitterness. There's Kevin. Do feel free, folks, to come on screen. But you can still mute your video or your sound. We are
Yeah.
So we'll
now,
see.
I did try and go through. So if anyone did not get promoted to panelist, please put your hand up in the chat and just say, hey, I didn't get on the screen.
Yeah, there you are. See, isn't this fun? Look, hi, Ralph and Elaine. See, it's not so scary. This is informal. My invite disappeared before I could tap it. So I think people might have got alarmed because some folks were like declining, and that's fine. If you want to stay off, that's fine. Be a lurker. I respect lurkers. So yeah, Menna, if you want to say invite disappeared, there's a few people in the chat, Menna, who are saying their invites disappeared. Maybe just run through and invite them all again. We'll see who comes on. But so you're all here. You're also polite. You've got your audios muted. Does anyone want to unmute and say something, ask something? I mean, Menna and I can keep talking. But it's nice to have everybody here. Like I love seeing your faces or your freeze frame, whatever you like. Anybody want to say something? You can do this or just unmute yourself and talk if you want.
Okay, I'll talk.
Hey, Gus.
It was a privilege to be a first reader on your book.
Thank you, Gus. Thank you so much. And you gave such great impact and sorry, your comments had such great impact. Gus, if you didn't catch it, is a wine writer based in Texas. And he had so many great insights that he brought to the manuscript. So I really appreciate that. So what are you drinking tonight, Gus? Or if anything.
No, I obviously I couldn't get a Canadian wine, but I'm drinking Domaine Wachu Riesling.
Oh, yeah.
Hold it up. I figured Riesling was as close to a Canadian wine as I could get.
Absolutely.
And it's a great dry Riesling with all kinds of fruit and high scores, although I think I don't believe in scores, but anyway, that's another.
Yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's a great wine. Riesling from Austria, crisp and dry and mouthful.
Exactly.
Does anyone else have a wine they want to show on camera? What's Elaine got? Some people are reaching for them. I can hardly see this. Is this your winery, Elaine? Maybe you want to unmute and tell us that wine.
The audio on.
There you go.
2016.
Oh, is it broken line between the lines?
No. It's the Wiscott.
Oh, the Westcott. Okay, awesome.
But it's a 2016.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
From the cellar in the basement.
Yeah.
Don't put the bottle so close to the camera.
Making us dizzy. And Peg has something there. I can see. She's got something. Let's see.
I do. I have a Pichetti Super Tuscan.
Nice. Puckett? Or
It's Pichetti. It's a local winery here in Cupertino.
That's awesome. Cool. Anybody else? Right. And oh, I'm getting a reverberation. Let's see. I don't know if I can. Everybody want to mute their microphones? Okay, there's Ryan down there. Yeah, my voice. Anyway, if you can all mute that. Probably the person doesn't know. Okay, who else wants to make a comment? Ryan, do you want to tell us a little bit about Benjamin Bridge? There he is.
Sure, absolutely. Folks, thank you for enjoying the non-vintage brute and the Nova 7 this evening. I really hope you did. If you did have that sparkling and then that beautiful Nova 7 to finish you off, if that's what you enjoyed. But thank you for doing so anyhow. It was a pleasure to join you all and be able to enjoy some wine alongside with you, because that's always a necessity to enjoy a little bit alongside. I'm here at the winery this evening. So Benjamin Bridge, of course, being a sparkling wine house, I've got the barrels in the background to enjoy it alongside. But I show it to you if you'd like, just a little
Nice. Look at that.
a little brief glimpse for anyone that hasn't been here before.
I don't think I could be trusted to be there at night, Ryan. Wow.
But it's got our barrel cellar in there. Benjamin Bridge, of course, being a sparkling wine house, then barrels are a necessity for our vintage sparklings, but the non-vintage that many of you tried this evening is done in stainless steel. It encompasses vintages all the way back to 2002, which is pretty cool. So 2002 was our first usable harvest here at Benjamin, and we were founded just 3 years before that in 1999. The non-vintage, I always love to say, shares the entire story of Benjamin Bridge in a bottle, which is pretty cool. Always getting a consistent host-style sparkling you can come back to. And then in those barrels that you just saw are all the new bases for our vintage sparklings as they come along throughout the years that I hope many of you can enjoy. And I had a couple questions that you folks had wondered about in terms of shipping and accessibility to the wines. So I did put a link in the chat, in the description, as to where to buy, which is a link to our website, and also a link back to Natalie's pack, which is on our website.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate you being here. And when I send a follow-up, I will send the links out as well for that. I'm just curious if anyone here has read the book yet. Anybody? Okay, Elaine, Nadine. Oh, okay.
Just a quick hello from Roger and Danielle at Betty's Wine Bar to Ryan.
Nice. To Ryan. Okay, you all know each other. All right, and there's Gian. Okay, so let's go back to maybe to the chat. But if at any time you want to unmute and just ask away, because you're all very polite here, or if you prefer to post a question in the Q&A or in the chat, do that. But please feel free, because I arranged this so that we could, chat if we wanted to. I got the special webinar license. Oh, I'm so glad, Dawn, you enjoyed being a beta reader. And
We
Paulette.
do have a question from Dawn.
Okay.
It is, can you explain what umami is?
Oh, umami. My goodness. There's probably people here who can explain it better, i.e. Kevin Gus and anybody else. But from my understanding, it is a Japanese concept that is the taste of savoriness or deliciousness. If you think about Parmesan, cooked mushrooms, it's not sweet, salty, sour, bitter. It's a fifth flavor. And they say they're going to come out with more than just 5. But it's that savory deliciousness. I don't know if you have anyone else to add to that to understand it.
My definition is it's whatever you taste that's not the first 4.
Process of elimination. There you go. That'll do too.
That works, Gus.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think of melting butter on mashed potatoes. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People often ask, what would you choose? Fresh bread or chocolate? Like bread and butter, hot bread and butter, or chocolate? I'll always go with the bread. I don't know. Who would be bread? Anybody? Bread. Okay. Who would be chocolate? Who would be both? Yeah. Cool.
Chocolate croissant.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions in the... Let's see. How would you find out that you can be that you are a super taster? There's lots of kits online. That's a great question. Super taster means you are sensitive to bitter. It doesn't mean you're a better taster, and it's a misnomer. But it was Dr. Linda Bartoshuk from Yale University School of Medicine discovered it in 1999. And she did thyroid medication on your tongue, and it's the density of your taste buds, your sensitivity to bitter. It's probably why I didn't grow up drinking. I just found beer and whiskey too bitter. It's why I got onto wine in my late 20s and then caught up. So you can, there's a lot of kits. I know, there's a professor at Brock University, Dr. Gary, begins with P, Pinkson, something like that, has a kit. But if you Google Super Taster Wine Kit, you can get a home kit and taste yourself. I will try to remember to put that in the follow-up note as well, some links there. Great question.
So you're encouraging everyone to taste themselves?
If they want to know. It probably would explain like a lot of picky children among us, who didn't like their green veggies. It's, and then a lot of people don't cotton on to, say, a bitter wine that has a lot of, tannin. We come to it often with an off-dry, slightly sweet wine to get into it. So,
Natalie, you're much more likely to be a super taster if you're a woman than if you're a man.
You're right. And so enlightened of you to bring that up.
But I would also point out that if you are like me with a universal thing, I can drink almost any wine and find something I like about it.
Yes.
That's so more of a male characteristic.
And you know what? The world is your oyster because you're not shying away from, like, I just don't like olives. And, when I got tested, my taste buds were measured down in California by Master of Wine, Tim Hanai. He told me, without my saying to him, I bet you take the tags out of the backs of your clothes. Check. I bet you have thermostat wars with your family. Check. I bet you drink tea, not coffee. Check. And so, yeah, the study is 25% of the population are super tasters. And of that 25%, the majority are women. So I don't know if it's evolution, cooking, tasting berries to see if they didn't kill the kids back down, cave days, whatever. I don't know what it is, but,
Well, why don't you put a link? Because that whole study's online. You and I have both written about it.
Yes, absolutely. Good suggestion. Absolutely. All right.
So we have another question from Marge.
Yes.
And it is, I'm listening from Atlanta, Georgia. I was told last year that you were not allowed to ship wines to the States. If that is still true, whose government do we have to complain to?
Both. You need to take your petitions to Pennsylvania Avenue and Sussex. It's a combination. Here in Canada, we have also a problem shipping province to province, which is just unconscionable given wine is one of the highest value add agricultural products we produce. Tens of thousands of jobs in rural areas. It's the only food product we put on the dinner table in its original package. So we have that issue to contend with, but then the cross-border shipping is also another one. And there just needs to be, I think, freer trade, free the grapes. There's organizations that try to promote that to allow, because as I said, most wineries are small. They're family-owned farms, which is a great thing. Small is great in wine, artisanal, boutique, that's awesome. Family-run farms, we need more of those. But what they can't do is big production. Big production fills the big liquor store chains. They don't have that. What they need is to be able to ship their artisanal little wines to a mailing list all over the world. So they diversify their risk. They're not dependent on any one store chain, but they find their fans, just like a book finds its fans, right? And reach them personally. But those border issues prevent that. All right. Go to supper, Gus. Thank you for joining us. And anybody else, of course, who has to leave, I'll send out the replay, but I'm here if you would like to ask any more questions. I'm still here.
We have one more question in the Q&A. What is the oldest wine that still tasted good? I'm assuming that you tasted. Or how old is too old?
Oh, with wine, of course.
With wine.
So in Red, White, and Drunk All Over, I visited Domaine Romani Conti. Sorry to name drop. It's the world's best Burgundy, I think, over in France. I got in there not because of who I am, but because of the readers I represented. And he took me down into the wine cellar, the wine library. And just at a first quick glance, I saw that the wines were going from about early 1900s to 1990s. These wines sell for $500 to $1,000 a bottle on release, and then they go up from there at auction. So, yeah. So anyway, but before I could get a real good look, he said, turn around. And I thought, what's this? And he said, I'm going to pick a bottle and you're going to guess the vintage. And I'm thinking, oh my God, no. I've been writing about wine for 3 years. And so he put the bottle on the oak barrel and I was able to turn around, but it wasn't exposing the label or the vintage. And I just, I was listening to him move around and I thought, I think he's in the middle of this. He's going to probably, chances are he's going to probably pull from the middle. So I guessed 1950s and he smiled like as if I were a little savant. I was like, no. And then I thought, I'll cut it. I got to cut it in the middle. 1955 would be too even. So I guess 1956, and just no lie, I guessed it. And it was like he thought I was some sort of, the rains in September and blah. Anyway, so then we were really good friends and he let me drink the rest of his probably $200 a glass wine. So that was fun. So that's the oldest one I've ever had, I think. 1956, something like that. But they've had wines that have been preserved in the Titanic that have been dredged up. It depends on the conditions in which they were stored, and then the actual how well the wine was made. The preservatives of wine are alcohol, tannins, sugar, and acidity. So are they in balance, and are they holding together? So it depends on how long a wine could last.
Ooh, great. I love the story behind that answer. We have a question from Kirby. If you could recommend a Pinot that we could buy in Nova Scotia. And P.S. he's dying to know if you have seen the show Drops of God.
Oh, yes. I started watching Drops of God. Yeah, that's the series that's adapted from the manga, the Japanese animation, but now they're doing it with like real people. And I started watching it, but I haven't got through it yet. So I'm curious if Kirby has watched it. And Kirby, feel free to unmute and let us know if you're there or in the chat. So what was the question? Pinot Noir in Nova Scotia. So Nova Scotia does cool climate grapes really well. Benjamin Bridge is fantastic at sparkling, cool climate grapes are just across the board really great in Nova Scotia. Your Chardonnay, your Pinot, your Tidal Bay is a special designation. Then you've got your hybrids like Sable Blanc and a lot of different L'Acadie Blanc. So if you're looking, Kirby, for Pinot Noir that's made in Nova Scotia, I would look to those wineries, Benjamin Bridge, Lightfoot, and Wolfville, I think it is, or is it switched? Who else? Gaspereau Vineyards. There's a whole bunch. Domaine de Grand Pré and so on. Then, of course, you can order online or get them from your Nova Scotia Liquor Commission, wines from other regions, like the ones we're tasting tonight. They all ship across the country. So try some of these. I mean, the Westcott, Quail's Gate, those Pinots are beautiful. I would encourage you to try them. Right. Anybody want to raise a hand? Got a question or a comment? Even a comment?
We also have from Heather Proctor. Have you tried 19 Crimes Sauvignon Blanc? Interesting story there and a nice wine.
Sorry, I cut you off. I haven't tried it, but what was the last part of that?
interesting story and a nice wine. So have you tried the 19 Crimes Sauvignon Blanc?
I have not. The 19 Crimes, of course, is well, I don't know if they've moved it from country to country, but it was originally Australia, based on all of the convicts who were sent from England in the late 1800s over to Australia as their punishment, a penal colony. And the story is these different, I don't know if they're made up completely or based on historical figures, but the crimes they committed were often absurdly not much, like stealing a loaf of bread or whatever. So I haven't tried the Sauvignon Blanc. I've tried some of the others. Some I like, some I don't. But it's an interesting brand, and sometimes they've got a hologram kind of thing or a QR code, I think, and you can watch the story of this criminal. They're trying to interact with the consumer in an interesting way.
We also had a comment from Heather talking about the show. Well, it's a book, but Lessons in Chemistry.
Oh, I love that.
So speaking to how women scientists were just as put down as women wine critics.
Yeah.
And if you can comment on that.
Oh, well, so streaming on Apple TV right now, Lessons in Chemistry, based on the book by Bonnie Garmus. I think it's Garmus. And that's been on the bestseller list for years. And it's extraordinary the way they've translated it from the book to the television. It's with Brie Larson. And the premise is brilliant. I mean, she's in the 1950s. She wants to be a chemist. Of course, women weren't allowed or promoted or whatever. And so she is frustrated and, has to do research on the side from home. And then she starts a cooking show that's all based on teaching women the chemistry of cooking, and that it's important work for your family, but it's also creative and all the rest of it. So it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. But yeah, it's another great portrait of how women in that day were underestimated, underused, their talents so underused.
Excellent. Well, I think that's all for the Q&A right now.
Awesome.
Unless anyone has any final.
Yeah, this has been great. Look at the stalwarts sticking with it. This has been great. Look at how many are still with us. I appreciate how you've stuck on to this. So does anybody want to raise their hand and say anything? It's okay. You don't have to, but thank you. Oh, Nadine, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just had a question. I haven't read your other two books.
Okay.
I feel bad that I haven't. I always knew who you were. I just never read the books.
That's all right.
Can you explain the difference between the two of them? If I was to go out and get them, which one is, I actually added you on Instagram. I have a little wine and food pairing page, Taste and Elegance, it's called. So I'm doing food and wine pairing and stuff like that. So I'm wondering which of your other two books would go more towards what I'm kind of geared towards.
Okay. I'll probably start with Red, White, and Drunk All Over, a wine-soaked journey from grape to glass is the subtitle. It was my first book.
Okay.
And the difference between that, my second book is Unquenchable, a tipsy search for the world's best bargain wines, not bottles. Mm-hmm. Those two are alike in that they're still first person, like the memoir, but they're not personal. Like I'm talking about wine and what I'm experiencing about the wine, but I'm not going into all the personal stuff. So they are not memoirs, even though they are in first person. So they're adventure stories. So the way I tackle it, Nadine, is the way I might say, I take a day in the life approach, meaning I work as a sommelier for a day in a fancy 5-star French restaurant to sort of teach you about how good restaurant service should be delivered in terms of the wine service, how to choose from a restaurant list, how to pair wine. So instead of saying, here are the 8 steps that your server should do, I'm doing it and flubbing so that I can, put humor into it, put a story, put color. I work the harvest, wreck my manicure, but in the process, teach you how wine is harvested, how it's made. I work in a couple of wine stores, get blisters, but I teach you how to shop for wine. So it's all the day in the life in those 2 books. So it's personal, but it's not that personal, not like the book 3. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, that will be awesome to help me out. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. Anyone else?
Can I say
Lisa.
something?
Yes.
Oh, just to add to what you said about your books, I'm in the middle of Unquenchable, and I am loving your prose. Like you're such a fabulous writer. But I never was interested in German Rieslings or Ontario wines before. And now I totally am. And our liquor store here in Little Nelson, BC carries very few German wines.
Mhm.
And I talked to the manager, and he's able to get some in for me, but it's like, oh, you have to order a whole case. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that. But yeah, just the way you write about the vineyards, the types of grapes, how they're harvested, the wines. And then you also put at the end of every chapter, you have recipes or not exact recipes, but what to serve them with. And I find it very, very clear. So I've got some girlfriends who want to do like wine tastings and like kind of book clubs. And I'm like, well, this is great because we can do this. Everybody brings something and just make it a group event. So I think I haven't read Red, White, and Drunk All Over yet, but Unquenchable is, like I said, I'm just halfway through it, but it's going to be a go-to book. So just wanted to say that.
Oh, Lisa, thank you. And your bottle of wine is in the mail. No, thank you. I appreciate that. And, there are lots of pairings in Unquenchable. I forgot, like it's, chapters. Also, there's a book club guide for Wine Witch, and it gives you a free book club guide. If you just go to nataliemaclean.com/guide, it's free, and it has pairings and how to organize an informal wine tasting with friends, whether you have a book club or a wine group or just an informal get together with friends or whatever. And of course, there are questions about the book that can spark discussion, from how do you feel about your relationship with alcohol to how wine is marketed to men versus women and all the rest of it. So it's quite a good companion guide to have, whether you have a group or not. All right. Anyone else? This last round, last call. Oh, thank you so much. All the nice
thank you, everybody. Wow.
Absolutely. I am going to, while this is still here, this chat, man, I'm just going to copy and paste, make sure I have it in because I'm going to send this out to people too, because there were a lot of good suggestions, pairings, all kinds of things in there.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
thank you, everybody. That was awesome.
Yes. Thank you so much. So you'll get the recording, and just email me if you have questions. I know there's some things I'll try to remember. There was a super taster kit, some tasting notes on the wines that I tasted. You can still order the wines if you like, totally up to you. But I think they're worth it, especially for the holiday season. And yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. So I really enjoyed this with you all tonight, and a special thank you, Menna. You're gold. So thank you so much.
I got you, Natalie. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate this. It's been great. I love doing this and the Halifax event. So yeah.
We'll have to come back again soon.
Yes, please. And you need to come to Ottawa. Everybody needs to come to Ottawa.
Absolutely.
All right. So I think that's it. I think we'll wrap it up. Cheers to everybody. Enjoy your evening. Thank you. You made my day. I'm energized. All right. Okay. Goodbye for now. All right. Bye.